So, being autistic, it's no surprise that I've struggled with communication my whole entire life. I take everything at face value and I don't understand implied communication. And this has caused a lot of problems in the past, but now that I understand I'm autistic and now that I understand that I have communication struggles, I have some new processes in place. I don't know if they're working well, they're brand new, but stick around and I'll share with you what I'm currently doing. So, I used to thoroughly get frustrated talking to people, especially like coworkers and bosses, social situations, because they'd be talking to me and I would never understand them. And I'm like, why can't they just get to the point? It's like they were talking in this swoop-de-swoop and smoke and mirrors and, coming in through the back door and surprising you, in the front room or something like that. And I don't understand that. I'm like, with all the smoke and mirrors, I can't clear away all of that fog and figure out what they're saying. And so I would either mask up and go, and, try to go along with it and try to understand, or pretend that I understood. And of course, in work situations, that caused a lot of problems. If you know, you know. And I just never could understand that. And then likewise, I would be accused of being rude or being too blunt or being abrasive with my conversations back to them. And so that got me thinking, is it me misunderstanding or is it them? Well, of course, I had gaslit myself thinking that I was not perfect, but I was right. So it had to be them, right? They were the common denominator. Everybody else, communicated horribly to the point of, why can't I understand them? Now, fast forward, knowing that I'm autistic and knowing that I'm the common denominator, that just changed the game for everything. So I've had bosses or supervisors, even any of my coworkers trying to explain things to me, and I would say things like, what do you mean by that? And they'd be like, whoa, that was rude. And I'm like, I'm not rude. I'm not being rude. I'm asking a question. What do you mean by that? And they're like, well, you're being abrasive or, blah, blah, blah. And they'd either like walk off or have an attitude with me, or if they were a manager, put me on a verbal warning for, I don't know, being insubordinate or, being condescending, I guess. I don't know. I got written up a lot. I forget why. But I'd be like, whatever, and I would just move on and everybody would be mad because I didn't know how to explain myself back then. I didn't know why I responded back the way I did. Fast forward to my other favorite thing to say, what's your point? And boy, that's a hard one, especially if somebody is like telling me a story and it's just dragging on and on and on. I always ask, what's the point? Not get to the point. That's different. I'm not hurrying them along. So it's not like get to the point. I really truly want to know, what's your point? Now I understand it. I need clarity. I need to understand, how am I supposed to process this information? Are we going to be discussing it? Are we going to have to sit down and come up with answers or options for anything? Am I just supposed to be, just listening and you're venting? And if that's the case, I need to understand that you're venting. So the point behind all of my questions, when I'm asking, is for clarity, so I understand what the conversation is and where we're going. I didn't know how to explain that. And so if there's any of you out there watching this and you struggle with communication and you try to explain yourself and people say, oh, well, then you're just being rude or you're being insubordinate or, you're being uncaring. That's from the neurotypical perspective. But from our perspective, from my perspective, I strictly need clarity. I understand that now. I need to know how to process what you're telling me so we can move forward with the conversation like normal people. And the other thing that I really struggle with on communication is open-ended questions, like going to interviews. There's been so many interviews where I didn't get the job, I know, because I just started rambling on and on and on, and all of these abstract, I can take that question and talk for, I don't know, an hour. You can't ask me open-ended questions. I don't know. First off, I don't know what to talk about. So I'm going to pick something that I'm interested in, which means I'm going to talk about it for like an hour straight without taking a breath. Come on. Ask me an open-ended question and you're either going to get a verbal dumpage or I'll say nothing. For example, ask me, what did you do this week? I'm probably going to say, not much. What did you do? And I'm going to say, what did you do? Because that's the societal expectation. But honestly, I really don't care what you did. I know that sounds harsh, but I don't care what you did unless I asked you specifically. Now, instead of asking me an open-ended question like, what did you do this week? If you say something like, did you design any new jewelry pieces this week? Then I can say, yeah, I got out my drawing board and I did 3 really nice pieces, and here's one that I'm working on. Then I feel like, I'm contributing to the conversation. And so what I do now when somebody asks me an open-ended question, I'll be like, so is there anything specific that you wanted to know? Because I did a whole bunch of different things this week. I did some fun things and I did some not so fun things. Which one would you prefer to hear about? Then I can pick the funnest thing that I did that week, you know what I mean? And so I've learned to ask follow-up questions when I'm speaking to neurotypicals, because I also find that they appreciate the follow-up questions. At least my husband does, because he knows I'm engaged and I'm paying attention and that I want to answer the question, the best way I can. So with open-ended questions, I don't do so well. And so I might ask someone, I didn't do a whole lot this week, but can you be a little bit more specific? And if they don't have any specifics, then, why are we having this conversation? Because first off, I really don't like small talk. And if this is a question or open-ended question to move into small talk, well, that's not going to work for me. So other things that I say to kind of help me through the communication process and to help me process what they're saying, I'll say things like, so what I heard you say was, and then I'll paraphrase back what I think they said. Now, 10 times out of 10, I get it wrong, but then that gives them the opportunity to, clarify. And then we're both on the same page. And so that seems to be working out, especially with me and my husband lately. And so I really like that one. I also say things like, so what's your point so I can follow up better with you, or so I have a better understanding? And that seems to be working also. Are you venting, or, do we need to have a conversation to come to some type of decision? So anyway, I just wanted to hop on here and talk about that a little bit, because me and my husband last night had a little snafu with our communication, last night while we were playing backgammon. And it got me thinking about how, now that I know I'm autistic, I can explain to him where I was coming from with my abrasiveness with the communication. But then I also told him, just be patient. I'm just working on ways to, be better, so our communication, can be more fluid. And so that seems to be helping. But anyway, I just wanted to hop on here and talk a little bit about communication while it was still fresh in my mind, and how just putting in, little changes and little tweaks and everything like that help immensely. And it's not that we're changing who we are per se, and we certainly don't want to change who they are, but there's absolutely nothing wrong working our way toward the middle. we already know that we're logical and we think things through, and so it makes sense that we have the presence of mind to adjust ourselves to the situation. After all, we've been doing it our whole lives. We've been masking. So while we're in the process of unmasking, I like to say that I'm finding communication masking that works with my autism. Yeah, I kind of like that. Anyway, I hope this was informative for you. You guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in my next video.